All right, here we are with episode 15, Exponential Growth. Today we're going to be talking about personal and business growth, and we have Brendan Caroll with us. Thank you, Brendan, for joining the show.
Thanks, Gabriel. Appreciate you having me on.
Today, we want to go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about your story and before we dive into your company, which we actually met at the Louisiana Startup Prize. And man, I was blown away by, your attitude, your personality. I know, we were sitting down with one of the accelerators, star.co. Is that right?
Yep, that was the one. Yeah, right.
We were chatting. There was probably 5 or 6. And then Eric was the facilitator. And then you were kind of like hanging out. But man, I was blown away by your insight and I was fascinated by your company. But let's go ahead and tell the audience a little bit more about you and your background. You started in college and then got some experience in the real world. So take us back a couple of years.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I guess we'll go back to the undergrad days. I'd done my bachelor's in computer security and information assurance from the oldest private military college in the United States, Norwich University. Played 4 years of football there, pretty active, was in their honor society, had dual concentrations. Came out of there, worked in life insurance for a little bit as a security analyst, moved on to doing consulting for one of the big 4 firms, Ernst Young. I had the chance to actually work for them globally. It was a great opportunity. I had started in Miami, and then I actually worked my way over to Australia. I had the chance to manage multiple offshore teams throughout the Philippines and India, deliver multiple client engagements to C-suite executives. And from there, they wanted me to go back to do my master's. So I went into Carnegie Mellon's program, which was actually the number 1 information systems management program in the country. Was fortunate enough to get in there. They had the first year abroad in Australia and then a year back in Pittsburgh. Was lucky enough to do my master's internship with one of the big investment banks in New York City, Credit Suisse, and had a full-time job offer to actually return there that I actually reneged on to launch Skycision. So definitely had my dabble in corporate America, and it was great while it lasted, but kind of caught the entrepreneurial bug, so to speak, and had to run with it. So,
did that happen before you went through all of this, or you always knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So my grandfather was off the boat Irish, right, and started a lawnmower company in the south side of Chicago. Busted his ass to put food on the table for his family. My father was the first in the family to get his college degree, paid for it himself, worked 3 part-time jobs, launched multiple medical imaging centers, was one of the first MRI technicians in the country. He worked with GE initially. And then on my mom's side, my grandfather had started a restaurant. And so this entrepreneurial bug has just been something in the DNA, right? And so I knew it was going to happen, but I actually didn't think it would happen until a little bit later down the road.
Now, I found it really interesting that even though you knew about that, you still went through the college system and working for, of course, we can tell that working for these companies, it definitely improved your career, but why going back to school and getting a master?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think I was fortunate enough to be pushed in the right direction by the right people. It was actually something that wasn't initially on my radar, but I was working for E&Y, and I think they saw the personal growth potential I had, and they realized that I had to be equipped with a set of tools that could escalate my performance to a higher level. That tool set that I was equipped with at Carnegie Mellon, realized that my potential could do so much more on my own, pursuing my own idea. But it's tough to build a house or a castle without a hammer and nails, And so you really have to have those right tools to do that. And it was something that I didn't really realize until I was doing it. And I was just kind of a fortunate victim of fate in that regards.
That's phenomenal. Now, PhD, there's nothing in the radar, right? Like doing a PhD?
So I don't know what the future holds at this point. Right now, we're completely focused on growing Skycision. Down the road, where things take me, whether it's a PhD, it's another company, or it's with Skycision for the next 40 years, time will tell. But we're going to kind of let life come to us a little bit.
Great. Skycision is a data-driven farm management platform built around the collection and processing of high-resolution aerial imagery obtained via drone technology. There you go. So what is it about? How do you guys ended up doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So what we did was I was at CMU when I kind of came up with the concept, and it was the fact that drones are this amazing hardware platform technology. And at the time, back in early 2015, end of 2014, when I started looking into it more thoroughly, there was a lot of consumer applications at the time, right? And for being kind of having this data intensive focus, I realized that the value was actually in commercial applications. The reason we chose to focus on agriculture specifically was because when I strapped my boots on and I got out there with the actual farmers and started interviewing them throughout the customer discovery process, they're actually a subsegment of the industry that are technologically drastically underserved. The software solutions they have now are somewhat viable, but they're a little ugly, they're a little clunky, and they've been doing what they've been doing for hundreds of years, and it works, but they don't realize that with hard data, there are certain areas that can be optimized, right? And these are guys that are up at the crack of dawn till sunset, and they need the help because they're putting in the hours of work. So we saw a huge opportunity here. And the reason it's not so much that drones are important, but drones are a great tool to put a camera in the air and capture very high resolution imagery at a low altitude. And so the idea was farmers know their fields. They know what they do very well. We're not going to replace them, but we can certainly save them time and save them money if we can help them, detect disease, which we can do. So what we do is we measure the reflectance of infrared light off of the canopy of the crops. And if it reflects at higher ranges, we know that the crop is healthy. And if it reflects in lower ranges, it actually indicates that the crop is stressed. And so when we start to look at other data sources that are being collected, we can actually understand why certain areas of the field are being stressed. We can help the farmer understand that, hey, instead of applying pesticides at a set rate to your entire fields, you should vary in this one section because it's experiencing problems with X kind of disease, or there's weeds, or what have you. And so what happens is the drone is a great tool to get real-time feedback and measurements, but the value is really kind of in supporting these key decisions that they have to make on a daily basis.
Yeah. Now, I remember when we were at the Startup Prize dynamic, there's probably like a 45 minutes, but you did get a chance on expanding the difference between what you guys are offering, which is the platform, versus just a drone with a camera, which is apparently getting more and more common out there. There's still some regulations that people need to have in place to be able to operate these machines, but you make a good point, kind of like clarifying the difference between those two in your company, right?
Yeah, so we actually, we're not a drone company at all. We're actually a data company. And so we work with off-the-shelf drones. We created an iOS app that will control them. So instead of having to try to pilot and figure out when to take pictures and where, you literally just tap your field, it auto-generates a flight plan, takes off and flies. The farmer can go back to work doing whatever they were doing. And all of that information then is uploaded to their client portal for them to see and infuse with other data sources. So again, it comes back to the fact that we don't care about drones. We know that drones are effectively the best tool on the market to capture the highest resolution data, but we don't want the logistics of running in a global supply chain. We don't want to get into this competitive space of changing a little piece of hardware to compete in a global market. There are people who have already won on the hardware side, particularly DJI, who is the first mover in the space period, and we've integrated with their platform. So why try to compete when they've already pretty much won, right? So we're leveraging their economy of scale and going to market.
And I think that opens up for our first out of the 5M that we cover in the show, the business model. So why don't we go ahead and jump into the business model for this particular company?
Sure, yeah. So what would happen is a typical workflow, farmer decides they want to use our product. They would order a drone off the shelf and download our app, and all their information could immediately start being seen in their client portal. So really, it's pretty smooth. It's a software as a service based model. So again, we're completely abstracted from the hardware side of things. We have preferred providers stateside that will license the hardware and support the maintenance of that. And then we're really kind of focused on the data side and delivering those results to them. So it's a software as a service business model.
And then making money, we remember again, subscription was one of the things that came up, but how do you guys make money?
Yep, absolutely. So it's interesting because agriculture is very different based on the different kind of crop you're working with. And so our pricing scheme is different for vineyards versus orchards versus commodity row crops. And we've kind of started with actually wineries and vineyards kind of being an initial subsegment. So at this point in time, we are charging on a per acre basis. So basically you'd say that you will have a 100-acre vineyard. We would charge you per acre and you have the responsibility of purchasing a drone. And so what happens is it's very important to find the right unit of economic that's valuable to the client. And for us, that's the per acre of data. For wineries, there are approximately 3.5 tons of grapes per acre, and each ton averages in the ballpark of $7,000 to $8,000. And so on an annual basis, you're looking at $30,000 of yield at stake per acre. And then if you actually think of what the ramifications would be of pest or disease infestation, they actually have to rip out the vine in many cases, and it takes 5 years for that vine to regrow. And so the actual yield at stake is more like $120,000 to $150,000 per acre. And so it really made sense for us to price per acre because that's the value that we're kind of affording.
Phenomenal. I know I have an article pull up here that talks about one of the grants that you guys got. So before we move into the next, and why don't we just spend some time on the fundraising piece of it? And I know you spend a lot of time on working on that, which is pretty much a whole nother job, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So do you want me to talk about the grant?
Yeah, the grant, and then we can jump into the accelerator. There's a 4 months, and I really wanted to spend more time on that as well. But let's go ahead and just talk about the grant and what was the process to applying and then earning the $50,000 prize?
Yeah, so the grant came from the National Science Foundation. The program specifically was their Innovation Core program, and it was meant, we're actually a little bit of a misfit in the program. The program is meant for university researchers who have a very advanced product or solution and are looking for a problem, right? And so there's two different premises when you start a company. You have a great solution and you're looking for a problem, or maybe you have domain experience and you've seen a problem and are going to develop a solution for it. The latter is the better of the two. And so what happens is this program is really focused on customer discovery and customer interviews. Again, it's the Steve Blink Lean Startup curriculum. You need to go interview 100 plus clients and not try to sell anything, but listen to their pain points, listen to their problems, right? And the whole objective of the 6-week program is to come to a go or no-go decision of whether your business is viable or not. And so we had already made the go decision. And so in that sense alone, we were already different than everyone else. We had made our first sale. So we were pretty much the only company in the program that had revenue. We had raised investment money. So again, we were further along than some of the other ones, and we weren't necessarily fresh out of a PhD program. So we were different in that regards, but at the same time, we were kind of a little bit further along. And so the way we leveraged the program was we knew that we had agriculture as a market, and our first sales were into wineries. And so what we did is we basically said, let's sub-segment our go-to-market strategy in a very tactical fashion, and let's focus on wineries. Let's do 100 interviews in wineries over a 5 to 6 week period and understand what they do every second of every day, because if we understand what they do, we can sell to them, right? And so it really targeted this process of, from a sales standpoint, do you have a feature that you're trying to sell, or are you actually targeting a value proposition? That's a very distinguished difference that really kind of enables potential sales growth. And the result of the program was we kind of found our product market fit in wineries. And so for us, in establishing what's an increasingly competitive market, we have a very solid niche, a solid foothold where we can begin to address other subsegments, but we kind of have a position that can become defensible. And so we did derive value from that program.
Now, let me ask you, in regards those interviews, were those done in person, remotely, or what was the process of being able to do something like that on a 5-6 week period?
So there's value absolutely in being able to do them in person, because you can read body language, right? You can see if someone's leaning in, you can see if they're vigorously head nodding because they're fed up with your questions, or you can see if you're really hitting a chord and like they're really sympathizing with what you're saying. So as much as we could, we did those interviews in person. I think we did over 50 of them in person, somewhere that's ballpark 65 to 70. And then at times, like, there are people that were more remote, like we wanted to talk to lead researchers or people from universities or another regional demographics, and we would set up calls, or video calls would be ideal because we could still see them. But kind of that visual line of sight premise where you can see a lot from being able to actually see the person and interact.
Now, that format help you out, coordinate that. So you're pretty much doing 5-6 weeks. That was pretty much what you and your team were doing, completely focused on that to be able to do. I mean, I'm just thinking on any type of interview, no matter who you're talking to, if you're doing 50 or 100 in a 5-week period, you definitely have to be completely focused on that.
Yeah, so it was really tough in the sense that, like, in an early stage, the money was definitely a huge help. But at the same time, like, we had already kind of started going to market, and so we had to actually slow down to do the process justice. And it was tough because we had a team of, so our team was larger, but they only have 3 people on the team of the grant. And so we had one of the advisors of the company and my lead engineer, my co-founder, working as a part of it. But he was so busy with technical development work, I didn't want him burdened by this process at all. And our advisor, he was kind of more of some guiding wisdom, right? And so really what happened was this whole process fell on my shoulders, which it should have as the CEO of the company, right? And what I learned from it was I can very effectively now own the product development aspect. So I had already came up with the concept and the vision of the company, but now I can actually own the development of specific features that serve value propositions because I've talked to these customers. I've been out in the fields with them. I know them inside and out. And that allows our development team to spend their time and their hours very effectively and differentiate our solutions from just what is status quo on the market right now. So it was a burden for 5 to 6 weeks, but it played its part in the long haul. So definitely time management, but that's part of running any kind of startup. And as a CEO, it's something you have to be very good at. So
fantastic. Now, the next M, of course, we've been talking a little bit about that, is just market. Another thing that I remember you mentioned was you guys are in the process of working with some companies in Australia. So why don't we expand on the market and what you guys are trying to reach? And even though you guys are in San Francisco right now, you guys are able to target a certain market around the States, or how are you guys trying to hit the market?
So we want to focus on regional demographics of high concentration. So when you locate a business, there's 3 factors you want to consider. One is access to talent. Are you building the company around the right people? 2 is access to capital. Are you getting investment funding? Can you basically grow this with the money that you need? And then 3 is access to clients. And it's not in that order. It may actually be the reverse order, right? So for us, being in San Francisco, Napa Valley is less than an hour away from us. And we can go out there and we have the most pristine wineries in the country, all within a very highly concentrated demographic. And so we can be very targeted, outbound sales focus. When you start thinking about structuring a sales force, there's 2 different dynamics. You have your inbound focus, which is more of your marketing, driving leads to your site. You kind of have an inside sales team to handle that. And then you have your outbound focus. So for our outbound focus, our cold calling, so we wanted to focus specifically on wineries. And the West Coast has the highest concentration of them, 75 to 80% of the country. Australia was not. We knew that because we're serving agriculture, we have a counter-cyclical market in the sense that in September, a lot of different operations go dark because it's wintertime and they're not growing. What a startup means is it's premised on high growth potential and you're constantly growing. So we can't afford to have that off season. So the only reason we looked outside of the US was because the Southern Hemisphere starts growing in September. There are opposite growing seasons between Northern and Southern Hemispheres. And so we said, okay, what Southern Hemisphere companies or countries are English speaking that have wineries? And that immediately narrowed it to Australia, right? And actually, like I mentioned earlier, I worked over there for a year, so I have some connections there already. And we happened to land a client here in Napa who is the largest wine producer in all of Australia. And so it wasn't the fact that as an early stage startup, we're looking to expand internationally. That's actually a terrible idea in many premises. But because we have a counter-cyclical market, because we're software as a service and can scale quickly, and because we had a premier client who's willing to open a door for us and homegrown connections in Australia, it became an option. Otherwise, any kind of startup that would be taking those considerations would be spreading themselves thin. And so for us, it was really kind of a unique opportunity that surfaced.
Well, you see now why I have Brendan here in the show, because this guy is not only full passionate about his company, but he's full of knowledge and experience, which you're 26, Brendan?
25.
25. Wow. Imagine that. That's phenomenal. So here on the show, we talk about personal and business growth. But before we jump into that, let's go ahead and touch on management. How many team members do you guys have right now?
We are currently a full-time team of 6.
Okay. And they are all based in San Francisco?
So I'll be probably launching a sales office in San Francisco, but the whole team is based in Pittsburgh. And the idea of that was we came out of Carnegie Mellon and we have the best engineers and developers arguably in the country at that university, arguably in the world. It's a global university, right? From a cost standpoint, as we're raising venture funding, it's half of the market rate of San Francisco or the West Coast. And also, it's not as competitive in terms of talent poaching, which is a big thing out here. We can focus on the vision of the company. We can focus on growing as we want to, building the right corporate culture and kind of not getting distracted. And so it really checks that box of premier access to talent.
Now, what are some of the tools that you guys are using to keep communications going and projects and...
Good question. We use Slack. It's really taken off as an enterprise communications tool. We can spin up different threads for different issues we're facing. I think we even started a thread.
Do you have any special fun type of channel in Slack?
We actually just added a channel the other day. It was pretty cool. That actually gives us auto notifications of any kind of failure of our mobile application. So anywhere it's deployed over the world, it will instantly get posted to the Slack channel. And so there's some cool customization functionality you can leverage with that. And then the other big tool that we use pretty actively is it's tough for me to manage product development, not being in the office and not being able to do whiteboarding sessions. And so instead of just having phone calls and checking in, you really need a tool to kind of effectively manage road mapping and prioritization. So we use Jira. It's pretty enterprise grade quality, and we're able to spin up different kind of pipelines with regards to product development and prioritize the tasks that fall within each one. We do live in a remote world today. There's a lot of digital teams, and fortunately, there are a lot of emerging tools that enable kind of that seamless integration. And those two have really been kind of the two biggest ones for us that we use.
Yeah, we love Slack right here. We have a obsession now with Slack. And one of the things, maybe that's something that you already been through. It's basically the notion of keeping up life balance and how do you manage your cell phone ringing and then the Slack notification all day long and you never stop. So how do you handle that?
So what I do is typically, this comes under the category of time management. I was actually writing a blog post about this the other night. I don't know if I'll get into kind of the premise of that, or you guys can keep an eye out for it. But basically what I'll do from a time management standpoint is, I have a Mac and I can just turn on the do not disturb notifications and I exit out of my email and put my phone in a different room. Anyone who needs to get a hold of me, I'll have a bunch of emails logged on the phone, texts, voicemails, whatever. But it's nothing that I can't catch up on. So if I need to focus, I turn it off to kind of keep myself balanced. Like I go to the gym on a daily basis. Fitness is a big kind of anxiety and stress relief for me. Any entrepreneur faces ups and downs on a daily basis. The path to success is not a straight line. There are valleys and mountains that you have to traverse and climb, and finding something that keeps you balanced and to handle that anxiety and that stress is really important. So I make time for that almost on a daily basis.
What time? Is it in the morning or afternoon?
Either early morning or late at night. Usually during the day, like you mentioned, I'm getting inundated with either meetings with clients, meetings with the team, potential new hires, trying to raise investment money, a million other tasks that are on the agenda. And so it's really either getting up at 4 a.m. or it's been a late day and kind of going at the end of the workday. So while everyone else is online, though, I have to be online and accessible to the best of my capability. So most of my personal time or my personal work in terms of planning and stuff usually happens in the morning or at night. And then the rest of the day is pretty much allocated to those interactions with people who are involved in the company some way or another.
Yes, totally. So I have two more. Well, we basically cover a business model, money, market, management, and the last one that I have here before we talk about personal and business growth, it's mentorship. So I see here the program, the incubator in San Francisco is a 4-month accelerator. It said, what is it? Accelerator prize? What is it?
Accelerator prize, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's a really cool program because they're specifically focused on SaaS companies, which is our business model we discussed earlier. So they focus specifically with software as a service companies. And the guy who runs it, Michael Cardamone, was one of the first business development reps at Box, who we now know is IPO'd and has been a tremendous success in kind of enterprise SaaS market. So it's someone who actually built out business development functions, seen it get funded, been in a very successful enterprise, and has a very robust network of investors focused on SaaS in one of arguably the place that sees the most deal flow in the world, Silicon Valley, right? And so for us, we were able to, Mike was a huge help in the sense that I was able to get a lot of benchmarks in terms of what venture capitalists or VCs expect to see in terms of core metrics of a company at certain stages of investment, right? So if you're raising a seed round or a Series A or a Series B, where do you have to be with in regards to revenue? What are your ratios between lifetime value of a customer versus your CAC? So on and so forth. And really understanding how you're building out a sales team, how you want to structure the funnel. What is your comp structure for your employees? There are so many different facets that go into just the business development side that really kind of helped us say, okay, we have solid tech, we have early product market fit. Now we need to look at ramping revenue and scaling up. And it really kind of equipped us with the right tools and approach to do so. And when you find a good mentor like that, we've had multiple of them in Pittsburgh as well, it enables an entrepreneur, especially one that's younger, to avoid many of the pitfalls that any kind of business owner may face, right? And so finding a good mentor or mentors in respective disciplines, I think, is, especially for a first-time entrepreneur, is one of the most important decisions you have to make when building a company, because otherwise you learn lessons the hard way. If you can learn them from other people's experiences, you save yourself time, save the company money, and you can be much more streamlined in your efforts. And so being coachable, seeking out those right resources is a very important component for any first-time entrepreneur.
And now in regards, you at that point, you already raised some capital, you guys won the prize, and why it's still going and deciding, hey, we're going to apply to this program. What was the decision process and the discussion between you and your team members on applying to the accelerator program?
It's interesting. So like most times teams apply to accelerator programs, but they actually found us. So Mike had found us. I think it was on AngelList, and don't go look because our profile is really out of date right now. But he had found us. He had found us on AngelList and reached out, and I had been having tons of investor meetings, and so I was like, oh, it's just another call. Talk to him, and he's like, you seem really confident in what you're doing. I was like, yeah, because it's a huge market and it's going to work. I was really confident, right? And I think there's something about that said like, okay, this team is solid. They're out of Carnegie Mellon. They have solid tech. This guy is clearly someone who has kind of this head down mentality where he's just going to get it done. And it was one or two calls, and they had made the offer to us to be a part of their cohort. They had actually closed applications, and they made a slot for us to get in. So one of the things you see is as you start to snowball traction as an entrepreneur, instead of having to bust your ass to find every opportunities start to find you. And that was really what this kind of came down to. We had two conditions for Mike. One was that the team was going to stay in Pittsburgh, because you give us $50,000, relocating the whole team out to San Francisco, we're going to burn through it right away, right? So that wasn't going to work. And then the condition number two was I have to travel to be with the team. I have to travel to be with clients. If he was okay with that, then we were okay with him. And he was really great with it and completely flexible and managed remote working a lot. And it was a fantastic program. It was one of the best decisions we made in the early stages of our company.
You mentioned confidence, and I think that's critical for anybody, entrepreneurs and not entrepreneurs. Where do you think your confidence come from?
You have to be careful because there is such a thing as dumb confidence, right? And so you have to make sure that your confidence is well rooted in like logic and validation. It's a good reference point back to the National Science Foundation program, where you really have to hear from the customers. Just because you're really smart and you've created something you think that people will buy, if it's not actually solving a problem, you don't necessarily have a business there. You have to get some kind of validation. And so my confidence came from the fact that I had put my boots on and been in the fields with these farmers. I had seen what they've been going through. I had seen the backbreaking work and labor that they put in, and really the lack of resources from a data perspective that they have to manage it. It's been so much look and feel, and I became so confident because I have a technical enough background to know how to design a solution that solves their problem. So it was really this gaping problem that faced me and looked you in the face, and you're just like, I can solve that. I know how to do that. And we can make it simple enough for you to understand how it can be used as a tool. And so I think that's kind of a component to that confidence. You don't have a product if you're not solving a problem. And so it has to be a smart confidence.
And you apply the same on a personal level?
What do you mean?
I mean, you're saying you basically have to know your stuff in your business so you can be confident. So in a personal level, we will go into the path of self-awareness. You know what you're good at and that kind of drill, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I know what I'm good at, but I also know what I'm bad at, right? And when I know that there's someone smarter than me in a certain area, I hire them. Equipping yourself with the necessary tools and resources to complement you perfectly. And as long as you have the right kind of relationship and you know enough that's going on, you're going to elevate your capability as a boss or as a manager or as a teammate to another level. It's constantly a self-evaluation process of where am I weak? As much as it's being confident, it's about where am I weak and how do I fix it? And a lot of that relates back to hiring, or it comes to developing a core feature. It's a competitive analysis. And so there is a thing of an element of dumb confidence, and it's dangerous. You have to be very self-critical. And when you be very self-critical and you address those weaknesses, you can then be confident. But it's not just something you walk in there, and because that's arrogance. There's a difference between confidence and arrogance, and that's an important understanding to have.
Yeah, I love it. In fact, I mean, just being completely transparent, when I saw you at the table, at the beginning, I thought it was ego, or who's this guy? Because literally Eric was the facilitator, but then you were, and as you kept talking, like 5 minutes after you kept talking, I said, okay, this guy, he really know what he's talking about. It's not ego. It's backed up with knowledge and wisdom and also humility. When you start being vulnerable, I was like, I like this guy. I want to talk to this guy, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so for me, like when we were at that table, it may have come across as ego because I was listening to other people's problems and giving them advice on it. But for me, it's just like this amazing, I love entrepreneurs because they see a problem in the world and they have an idea of how they want to fix it. And sometimes, a lot of times, especially with first-time entrepreneurs, they don't necessarily have the right tool set. Maybe they don't have that mentor. You can see the fact that they're encountering challenges, or maybe they don't have the guidance that they need. And if there's some kind of insight that I can have in my time of doing this, or lessons that I've learned from my mentors that I can pass down, then I want to share that, right? And so I think as the discussion went on, you could kind of see a little bit more that it was a genuine desire to help other people who are pursuing their passion and dreams. And really, at the end of the day, we all just want each other to be successful, right?
Unbelievable, man. That was an amazing event. I think I'm definitely going to just hang out. I think it's in a couple of weeks where they're going to do the big prize or they're gonna choose what, 5 companies and then do the
Yeah, I
big
think
pitch?
it's I think they had 2 different like semifinals events with like 70 to 80 at each one, and they're picking 5, something like that. So
Yeah, right.
it should be pretty cool. Definitely, will be some great entrepreneurial.
So now
companies.
we're switching gears in the last segment of the show. We're gonna be talking about personal and business growth. In regards to personal growth, what's something that keeps you growing, or how do you keep feeding yourself to grow on a personal level?
Within what context? Like in my personal life, within the business life, within
On just personal life, like, and then we will talk about business for sure. But let's say you definitely went through school twice, and that's one aspect of growth. Let's say career and professional. But then you keep feeding yourself all this knowledge of this, all of this passion, all of this learning about startups. You keep feeding yourself. You keep reading blogs or finding out for mentors. So that type of personal growth.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first thing is really more on the personal side, where this kind of passion any entrepreneur has for their company is all consuming, and it has the ability to eat 100% of your time and 100 plus hour weeks. And it's very easy for you to get completely consumed in the dream and pretty much lose any personal life that you have. So with regards to that, I've actually had to make a very conscious effort to, and I'm very A-type personality. I'm very left brain. So I'm very like organized. Like I actually have to put personal time on my calendar, right? Cause I have all these meetings and I have all this stuff going on. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. One day a week, I'll actually block out like on a Saturday and a Friday night, go out, maybe with a friend, maybe get some dinner, maybe go to the movies, de-stress a little bit. Saturday, I go to the gym, I take things slow. And then Saturday night, I work back into the workflow. But I take kind of this 18-hour period to just say, woosah, get your mind right. This is what we have to do for the week, process. And then Sunday, I move back into that kind of 15-hour work days, if you will. So it's really, if you have to get to the point where you actually just put time on the calendar to take for yourself, it's important. And for me, like physical growth, I used to be an athlete. I used to play football. It's a big stress reliever for me. And so that has to be an element of my personal focus on a daily basis, but also very easy to lose connections with family and friends, right? Like you have to make a conscious effort not to just stay connected on Facebook and post out, but to actually have these tangible relationships where you're touching people's lives. And it's very easy to get completely absorbed in an early stage business where you lose sight of that. And so not too long ago, I actually sent an email to all my family saying like, guys, I'm building my dream company. Like if I'm a little less accessible, I'm apologizing in advance. I'm sorry if I miss big events, but like, here's my contact information. Please, like, let me know if like stuff is coming out. I can work it into my schedule if I have enough notice. And so you really kind of have to make an outward conscious effort to preserve those relationships, because at the end of the day, that's really what's important. And so I think that's a big element. One thing I've been trying to work on is spiritually a little bit. I want to kind of start getting back into a little bit more of the church flow, start getting into some volunteering efforts. I'm still trying to work to find the time for that. But yeah, it's a balancing act.
Yeah, I love it. This is episode 15, and I want to say at least 8 or 9 of the entrepreneurs, business owners here in Louisiana that we have had the pleasure to talk with. That's something that always comes up: family, personal time, and then faith. In fact, I mean, one of them, Chris King, I was hanging out with him yesterday again. And in his episode, that was episode number 7. He actually, in the middle of the interview, he got in tears, man. We were talking about faith, and we were talking about how he was able to develop this phenomenal growth in his company. But then when we start touching on the personal, man, it got really emotional. I think it's phenomenal to be able to still have your emotions be a part of you as an entrepreneur, not try just to numb them and shut them down and say, hey, I'm just focused and I have no emotions. So, I mean, kudos on you, man, that you keep all of that in line, even though you have to make decisions and say, hey, sacrifice, I'm going to focus on this and there's going to be less of this, right?
Yeah, well, I think that passion starts overflowing into other areas of your life because your time becomes so limited. You try to make the most of every moment. So you're putting so much more into it. And so that those emotions, the guy that you had that broke into tears, it's because there's just so much passion and everything. And if you're putting so much into the company, you have less to give in other areas. And so when you give, you got to give hard, right? And it's one of those things that is a very delicate balance. And it really takes a conscious effort to manage. It's tough. It can be done.
Last question on the personal growth. Where do you see yourself? So you talk about, again, of course, your relationships and your business already, but 5 years, 10 years from now, where do you think you see yourself heading to?
Business-wise or personal-wise?
Let's do both then.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Right. I mean, in 5-10 years, hopefully, met the woman of my dreams, settle down, start to have some children, right? Kind of the American dream, if you will. But I really do let that kind of come to me. I love to travel. I've done some time in Thailand, Australia, Singapore. Once you get that travel bug, it definitely sticks with you. So I want to see some of these kind of the beautiful places that the world really has and take time out to travel to them and kind of see them. When I'll find the time to do that, I don't know, but it's definitely at the top of my priority list when I do find that time. And then from a business standpoint, it really depends on the progress of Skycision, right? So, I mean, if we have a huge buyout in 5 years, then I'm going to go travel and hopefully look for the next opportunity. But we're on trajectory for an IPO, then 10 years from now, I'm going to be busting my ass more, if that's possible, than I am today, right? So much of it is there's no script to entrepreneurship. It finds you, it comes to you in the growth trajectory that you need to have and that you want to have, and you have to go with it. You have to run with it, right? There's a tentative plan, but plans change on a daily basis in this industry. And so it's really tough to kind of forecast where I'll be. I just know that we are keeping our head down and we are working our ass off to make it happen every single day.
Right on, man. Right on. Now, the last question before we finish here, it will be more on the business side. So you say that when you guys are working with PCs or any startup in general, there are certain metrics that are critical for business growth. And the name of the show here is Exponential Growth. The notion is that it's kind of like compound interest. Every year you keep growing and growing and growing. So what are some of those metrics that you guys keep track of for exponential growth in your business?
Yeah, so I think from a revenue standpoint, at least for SaaS companies, you probably want to be growing about 10% month over month. Y Combinator is a pretty prestigious accelerator, and they really kind of bust their cohorts balls about growing 20%. I think they're week over week. They're real intense over there, which is great. And you need to in the early stages. The premise of startups is high growth, right? And so, but at the same time, it can be a pitfall where you have to make sure that you don't grow too fast where it breaks the company's back. If you grow too fast around the wrong problem you're solving or around a bad product, you're going to have a lot what you call technical debt that you have to redo, right? And so I think one aspect is definitely revenue growth, but also you want to make sure that you have an effect, so the cost of acquisition CAC versus like your lifetime value of the clients has to be a sound ratio. You want to think about your conversion rates, converting about at least 5% of contacted leads to the bottom line. And if that's not happening, then why? You want to focus on your inbound leads, look at like clickstream analysis. People come to your website. What are they clicking on? Are they converting to leads? Are you logging those into databases? Why aren't you doing that? If you are, why aren't you converting into sales? If you are, then great. What are your metrics? Factor that into your bottom line growth. And so it really comes down to the metrics of outbound sales focus, your conversion rates, churn. Churn is a huge one. You definitely want to minimize churn. Make sure that customer retention, upselling, have a premium product offering where you're working them up to the next level. And so there's kind of this whole portfolio of key metrics that are important. Margins. And so SaaStr is a great website for SaaS companies. It has some really good blog posts. HubSpot has some good thought leadership on the actual sales process. But SaaStr is a pretty good one for SaaS companies that are looking for some thought leadership on the space. And, just do some Google searches on terms of like Hacker News is out there. There's a lot of great blogs in the tech industry that will help you kind of get familiar with the core components that you need to hit to really kind of raise VC funds.
Extraordinary, man. Any advice for young entrepreneurs?
Find a mentor, first and foremost. Find a mentor. It's not even, there's a couple things, right? So I think it's a first-time entrepreneur more than it is an age, right? Like if you haven't done it before, you need someone to show you the ropes. If you're young, you need to make sure that you have the right toolkit. That might be education, right? Like I understand that like Bill Gates and Zuck dropped out and they're billionaires now, but they are the exception. They are not the standard. 80% of entrepreneurs fail in year one, and 20%, I think, of those that succeed fail in year two. Or 20% of those that move on, 80% of that 20% fail in year two, right? So like the statistics are overwhelmingly against you, and you have to find every resource that you can use to make yourself successful. Entrepreneurship isn't something you do, it's a calling. It is, I've seen a problem, I have a solution, I have a good mentor, I have product market fit, I know I'm solving a problem in the world, and you have the passion and the confidence to pursue that and the grit to overcome all the challenges that you face on a daily basis. So there's a lot of elements that really go into that.
Yeah. What's the best way to people that are listening to the show to find you?
You can either connect with me on LinkedIn. I think I just created a public Facebook page where I'm going to start blogging on a little bit and putting out some thought leadership. But yeah, LinkedIn, Facebook, or I think I'm on AngelList. There's a bunch of social media platforms that you can connect with me on. I think there's capabilities to do direct messaging if anyone has inquiries about any kind of problems that they're facing in their startup challenges.
Great. And anything else you would like to add?
No, I mean, I think you're very comprehensive in everything you covered, and I think it was a pleasure to be on the show. I definitely enjoyed chatting with you, Gabe.
We will be linked on the show notes, skycision.com and Brendan's LinkedIn and the couple resources that we mentioned here. Man, it's been a pleasure, and looking forward to what's going to be happening in the next 2 years with you and your career.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you having me on the show, and definitely look forward to staying in touch.
Sounds good. Take care, guys, and see you in the next episode. Thanks.